points that I wanted to say. And when I entered, there was a person who was talking about how important phone is. And actually, I used the phone to find out how many Indians had won Nobel Prize. You know, that curiosity was not even there earlier. And when Ma'am said Sir C.V. Raman is the first Science Nobel Prize winner, I really want to go check how many of Indians have actually done it. I don't know if you all checked it. There are about 10 people, Indians, who have won Nobel Prize. And it's become 13 now. And of which 4 of them have got Science Nobel Prize. So, and Sir C.V. Raman apparently is the first person to get in the field of science. So, thanks to Dr. Nagamani to make me look for it. And by the way, how many of you all have watched this movie, Imitation Game? Don't you all watch movies? You do watch. So I suggest you all watch the movie Imitation Game. That movie is all about Alan Turing. So it's a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed the movie. It's brilliant. So you'll really be able to, appreciate what went on to building the first automaton, as Dr. Nagamani was mentioning. So I suggest, please watch that movie. It's called Imitation Game. Okay, now going on to my session. Are you all set? Super. So, as Nam said, my focus in NASSCOM Future Skills is to ensure that there are more and more people skilled on cybersecurity, and that is what I'm driving, cybersecurity skilling within enterprise, within academia, and across the citizens. So the statistics here itself will tell you how important it is to be qualified in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is one area where there's always shortage of skilled resources. And I'm like a proof of pudding here. So I moved out of corporate in 2018. And till date, I keep getting calls from headhunters for job in cybersecurity. So if you all want to be relevant, have an interesting career for a long duration, I think you should look at skilling yourself on cybersecurity. Look at the open position. There are about 3.1 million open positions across the globe, of which 2 million are in APAC itself. So that is the demand for cybersecurity professionals. NASSCOM, there's a unit in NASSCOM called DSCI. They have come up with a report that says 1 million cybersecurity professionals are needed by 2025. So the numbers are staggering. So you really don't have to worry, will I be outdated? Will I become irrelevant? If I focus on cybersecurity, no, you won't be. And this is a field which is growing at almost like 30% year on year. Whereas now if you look at IT sector, the IT sector is growing about 8 to 10%. That is, they add about, if there are 100 people, they add about 10 people, 8 to 10 people every year. Whereas in cybersecurity space, the addition is almost 50%. So much is the demand for people in cybersecurity. And we did a recent study. There are about 53,000 open positions within India in cybersecurity space, and this is not including the freshers ask. So this is for people who have 3 years plus experience. There are about 53,000 open positions here. So what are the main factors that is driving cybersecurity? So you all are aware, somebody said, asked a very tough question to Professor Nagamani saying, why can't we implement new education policy at the drop of the hat? It is not possible. The lockdown demonetization was possible because they made the currency valueless. Here, you cannot make the current education valueless. The education has to gradually move to the level that it is required. So education is not, money is a currency after all, whereas education you are doing right from, 3 years onwards, and the education is going to change to the 21 years, the way you study, the change cannot be implemented instantaneously. So that's just in addition to that, policies like demonetization, policies like implementing a GST is something that can be done because it is not a long drawn process. Whereas education is a much long drawn process. So digitization is one thing that is driving cybersecurity. So as more and more people are going to get into the digital space, the exposure is going to become that much more. So if you look at it, in India, the Digital India has really revolutionized the way we work. So this data is like stupendous, no? There are about 12.3 billion mobile applications which were downloaded in 2019. Digital payment transaction in India is going to reach a staggering number of 130 billion by 2023. So people, I'm sure most of us today use digital payment only. We use a Paytm or a Google Pay. Hardly, if you open my wallet, I think I will hardly have like 100 rupees with me. And we prefer digital transactions, digital payments. That's the way we all live in here. And all of us are in the social networking space, and we are just second to China. So the expectation is maybe about 422 million people on social media. And if you look at Indian population, it's about 1 billion, right? So it roughly says 40% of them are going to be on social media, which is a huge number. And what does it mean? If so many people are getting into digital, then that is the number of exposures that they will have. So people can attack you in so many spaces because your attack surface is just increasing. And of course, we have such a lot of e-transactions that has happened over the period of 2019. So essentially what you see here is digitization opens a lot of attack surfaces. So there are many places where an individual, an enterprise, or even the country can get compromised. Today we do have security. When we say national security, we talk about land, water, air, space. Cybersecurity is the fifth area. So there is a lot of impetus put to have cybersecurity experts even at the national level to ensure that they work towards the security of the country. And we always hear when we say, so digitization is one thing which is driving the factor. And we always hear about cyber threats. Oh God, that we had the Heartbleed attack. We had another attack in WannaCry attack. So you keep hearing attacks happening, and you think, okay, it's all happening elsewhere. In India, we are all safe and fine. But that's not the case. India also is experiencing a lot of cyber attack. So these are some of the few examples of what has happened in the cyber attack. The first one that you see, SBI, the attack that has happened is they were using an SMS server to send messages to their account holders, and that machine was not password protected. So what happened is about 422 million victims' phone number, contact details, everything got exposed. So this is one example. The second example is the Indian credit card. This is the huge scam that happened where the credit cards of about 1.3 million users were stolen. And how did it happen? This happened using a skimming device at the ATM POS. So the kind of attacks that are happening are widespread. So one you said is an administration level error where a person did not change the password. The second one is having a physical device at the POS instance. The third one that you see here, healthcare website. So if you look at data breaches, most of the data breaches, up to 43% of the data breach is happening on a web application. Web applications are extremely vulnerable. And this is one example where the website was breached and the PII data that was stolen was actually given to some healthcare providers or a healthcare research firm or a pharma firm. So that is how the data was exploited. And there was a recent study which IBM did, which said the cost of a data breach in India is about $2 million for an enterprise. That's pretty significant. And when our credentials are stolen, each of our credentials are sold at $150 in the market. That it's called the dark web. So what we all are aware today is the web, which is like tip of the iceberg. The web that we all use when we do a Google search, the search that it goes is the web that we all use. That's just the tip of the iceberg, which I could say 10%. Then you have something called as the deep web. Then you have something called as the dark web. So, and all the criminal activities happen in the deep and the dark web. And when they say credentials are, sold in the dark web, so people can go buy the credentials, say, I want to buy these credentials. As I said, they pay $150 and buy a credential, and they can use it for any purposes. They can use it for any activity. So our own, the thermal station, which is there in Kudankulam, luckily the compromise happened only in the admin block. There was a malware which affected a server in the admin block, and that got restrained. But imagine if something had happened on the control system. And 2020, there are a few breaches which I just want to quickly highlight. So you had the JustPay breach that happened, where again, they did not refresh the password that they were using and got access to it. PTI server, Press Trust of India. This just happened as recent as October last week, where the servers got hacked through a ransomware. And interestingly, this ransomware, Lockbit ransomware, is a ransomware as a service. I'm not sure how many of you all are aware of something as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. There's malware as a service. So people produce malware and then they sell the malware in the dark web, where you go purchase the malware and then you do whatever attack that is needed. So India is not safe from cyber threats. So all of us need to be cautious as an individual, and when we are playing a role in an enterprise, we need to be cautious. And of course, as a country, we need to be cautious on how we handle the cybersecurity threats. You all can just check. You can check on your mobile device. Have I been pawned? Have I been pawned? Where spelling of pawned is P-W-N-E-D, and give your email address, so you will know if you have already been breached or not. So you can experiment that later on. So first we said digitization, then we said about cybersecurity threats and the regulations. The industries that are fairly regulated, BFS and insurance, they have very clearly defined rules on how you should handle the cybersecurity infrastructure. So these are again areas which will provide a significant amount of jobs in the security market. So this is one of the studies that says, what are the typical positions that are open in cybersecurity? So you have a significant amount in the incident response and security testing. Just to put it in perspective, incident response is when an attack happens, how is the analyst able to find out what the loopholes is, what has happened, and try and fixing it. So that is the type of activity that happens in incident response. Security testing is, how are you testing? As I said, web application, 43% of the data breaches happen in web application. So how are you testing your web applications? And the other testing is, how do you test your infrastructure for any vulnerability, and how are you hardening it? So these are the areas in security which has maximum demand. But the maximum concentration of resources are in security operations. So these are the people we say eyes on glass kind of people who keep ensuring all your security devices are working fine, your proxy, your firewall, your web application firewall, all of that is working fine. So that is about the maximum number of people in the security job market. But what you see as the highest growth is the incident response and security testing. Incidentally, anybody, you might be wondering what it takes to start off on cybersecurity career. Do I have to be an engineer? Can only engineers get job in cybersecurity career? Predominantly, yes. A lot of computer science engineers are good, well suited for cybersecurity career because they do some amount of computer networks in their college. But nonetheless, there are a number of fields in cybersecurity where you don't have to necessarily be an engineer. You could be any graduate. You could have any knowledge, a little bit of knowledge in programming. You can take up a career as the security tester, application security tester. So if you have some interest in programming and you're a little inquisitive to see, let's break the code, let us see what loopholes are there, you can very well get into a career in cybersecurity. You do not have to have an engineering degree. Similarly, there are areas in cybersecurity where we say governance, risk and compliance, where I said about the regulations. These are very clearly led policies, standards, procedures which are defined. So there are experts in these areas who know those regulations and they will do audit in the company whether the company are in line with the regulations that are provided. So students from non-science graduates can also get into cybersecurity in the areas of GRC. Students across the board can get into cybersecurity in security operations or security testing. Probably for people who are involved in hard security engineering type of work, you probably need an engineering degree. So which are the verticals in India which has the maximum demand? BFSI has a big demand of cybersecurity resources. IT services industry has a huge demand for cybersecurity. I think there are IT services industry in India, to put it in perspective, is close to almost about 2 to 3% of the total IT market of India. I think almost 4% of the IT services India is the security revenue that is coming in. And then the government. So there are so many projects which government is running which needs cybersecurity professionals. One example is the Smart City project. So Smart City project needs a lot of security experts, be it in the rollout of Wi-Fi. Okay, so there are lots of areas where you have expertise required in the Smart City implementation. Be it in smart lighting, be it in smart transportation, they call it mobility. So in all of these spaces, you could actually have a lot of job opportunity. The Digital India has a lot of requirement on in the cybersecurity space. So this is one such data that I wanted to quickly share with you. We have actually used artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques and used NLP, and we have browsed all the job portals and the company portals, and then we have come up with what is the demand in the cybersecurity space. As I said in the first slide, there are 53,000 positions open today in cybersecurity in India, and yeah, that's the open position that's there. And the job that you see are against the various job categories: security analyst or analyst role in security space, be it an security analyst or an application security analyst or an endpoint security analyst. So those are the people where the demand is close to almost 10,000 people. So this is the demand that you have here. And just leading into what ma'am was Dr. Nagaveni was mentioning. So we, as part of SSC NASSCOM, which we are IT/ITES sector, we have developed a career map for cybersecurity and exactly following the guidelines of, how should the curriculum be defined, what should be the outcome. All of that is done according to that, and there are these many roles that are identified in cybersecurity. There are about 11 streams which you can pick up, and for about 11 of them, we have the careers completely defined. What should be the skills, what's the entry criteria, how do we do the assessment, and for few of them, the assessments are ready, so you can take up the assessments, and if you clear the assessment, you get a certificate with SSC India, Skills India and NSDC logo, and this certificate is recognized by quite a few countries across the board. So the next slides just tell you about the different roles that you have. So as part of NASSCOM Future Skills, I'm not sure how many of you all have actually logged into this URL. I think you all please do note down the URL, www.futureskillsprime.in. I will anyway show that in my next slide. As earlier ma'am was talking about the MOOC platform, this platform is a joint initiative from NEETI, Ministry of Electronics and IT, and NASSCOM Future Skills. So we have a platform that is available which focuses on future skills. We call about 10 different skills in future technologies: AI, big data, cloud, cyber, IoT, RPA, blockchain, AR, VR. So there is content available on all of these future skills. There's also content available on professional skills or soft skills, about 10 of them. The beta of this product is already there. You all can sign in and you can use this platform. Whatever is currently available is all free, so you can go consume this content from the platform. And you could also take up the assessments for the ones which are industry aligned. I'm not sure if I'll be able to connect and show it to you on the, can I connect to internet? So I'd like to quickly give you a walkthrough on that. Do we have 5 minutes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you all see this? So just type in www.NASSCOM Future Skills homepage. So you go to this homepage. futureskills.nasscom.in, and you see all of this available here. this portal is available for all the citizens of India. When it becomes GA, generally available, there will be a check for your Aadhaar, but since it's beta right now, you don't have it, so anybody can go here and you can start learning. So what you see there is again 15,000 positions as of today, 76,000 by 2024, one of the reports that was done. I already have an account here, so let me just quickly. Oh, I don't remember. I'm using a different machine right now, so I don't remember what password I gave. Okay, I'm sorry, can I use my machine? I can't show it from my machine. Okay, so nonetheless, it will take some time if I have to go create another ID. Let's see if I can join in with my Google.
Why you can't go from that side? Internet with examination examination ಇವಾಗಲ್ಲ 4
Okay, so I'm having some trouble using your phone. My phone is offline. Okay, so nonetheless, just go to the website. So there is, it's easily understandable. It doesn't need any special user instructions. You can look at it. There is content on, as I said, in all technologies. On cybersecurity, there are 2 courses from Cisco and there is 1 course from our partner Skillsda. So you can go ahead, consume the course, and you can also do the assessment and get yourself certified. So sorry about the glitch that I'm not able to show you the demo. I am missing my laptop and I'm not able to connect with my phone also. So it will take some time for us to create a user profile and do it. But quickly to see what it is, I can just walk down through this page. So this is our leader, Ms. Dejani, and what this program is all about. So this is partnership with MIT, CDAC, NILEX and NASCOC. So we have these here, and then we have the industry relevant courses. We have industry relevant courses in all of these technologies, emerging technologies. So when you just navigate it this way, you know what is happening. So you see all the technologies here. So in cybersecurity, if you click cybersecurity, it takes you to the platform and you need to sign in, and you cannot sign in right now. So this is something that you could take a look at it, and you could also check if you're already compromised by doing have I been pawned. But net, what I would like to say is cybersecurity is an interesting area. Whichever stream of education you're in, be it science, technology or commerce, you can have a career in cybersecurity. So happy learning and thank you so much.
Okay, I think I'm audible. So good afternoon to all of you assembled here. First of all, I would like to thank the Soundarya College of Institute of Management and Sciences for giving me an opportunity to introduce augmented reality and virtual reality to you on this occasion. Let me just brief you about what is it and other things. Before that, any idea what actually you know about augmented reality or virtual reality? Any idea about this? Okay. This is an emerging field which is coming up, and I believe it will be answering, the entire presentation will be able to answer how actually the new education policy is also towards the same thing. How we can integrate multidisciplinary tasks using augmented reality or virtual reality. Okay, but just with this short introduction, let me go through the presentation. Okay, so the agenda for the day will be mainly you'll be having an introduction to AR VR, about the technology, the devices that can be used in AR and VR. Then what are the different types of controls we can have on this? What are the different types of tracking techniques that are available? And finally, the applications using AR and VR. Okay. So first of all, when I asked you as to what is augmented reality, it is nothing but a combination of real sense. See, all of us know our sense organs, correct? So, what actually happens in augmented reality is, you are in this present situation, your senses will feel as if there is an augmented, means outside the world, something has emerged in front of you, and you will be carried into that world with the help of your senses. That is what is known as augmented reality, and that is actually how it works also. In order to make you feel that you are in an augmented world, we have to first have control over your senses. See, it is always told, seeing is believing. So whatever you see, you believe it. So using graphics in real time, the simulation is created such that you feel as if you are in a different environment. In VR and in AR, you feel as if different augmented things have come into the real world, and you will emerge in that particular manner. This is just an example wherein we are showing the human brain. If you just scan a person, where exactly the brain is situated, you can have an image of it. So, at the end, in the conclusion of this presentation, I will also be showing you for certain demos which we have developed. Okay, moving on further, let me also tell you what is virtual reality. In virtual reality, it is an artificial world wherein you feel as if you are in that artificial world. So, even here, all your senses will be under the control of a computer graphics. You feel you are in that world. So, what is the difference? Okay, let me just tell you how this VR works. It is just like an immersion, like you will be under the impression that you are in a different world. So, in order to feel that presence, you may be using different gadgets. I will be telling you about the different devices that you can be using there also. Now, to know the difference between VR and AR, that is virtual reality and augmented reality, you can see in the first slide is the augmented reality wherein you are in a world and the different element has come here. This is an augmented element which has come in your environment, in your real world. This is augmented reality or AR. If you see to the other part, you yourself are in a virtual environment, that is an imaginary world. You are in an imaginary world, that is VR. So I believe you are able to understand the difference between virtual reality and and the augmented reality. Moving on further, just to theoretically tell as to or differentiate between augmented reality and the virtual reality. In augmented reality, system augments the real world sense, whereas in the virtual reality, you are in a different environment. You feel as if you are in a different environment. Then, again, in augmented reality, user maintains a sense of presence in the real world. Means, I will be here only in this present world. Whereas in virtual reality, you feel as if you are in a different world. Okay? Finally, augmented reality needs a mechanism to combine virtual and real world. The same thing happens in the virtual reality also. I believe it is more clear. I just have one demo to be played, which will give you more clear information or to differentiate between AR and VR. There is okay, please have a look at this. It is telling you the difference between AR and VR. See, this is here AR. You are scanning the device. As soon as you scan the device, you feel as if it is projected. You are in the real world. But if you keep any device, it is projected. You can rotate it. You can rotate it. You can see all the internal organs that are there. It can also be showcased. Everything can be labeled. Everything can be labeled. Okay, now I am showing you the VR part of it. That is the virtual reality, wherein you feel you are in that particular world. So he is using a gadget. Whatever he is seeing through the gadget, you are seeing here. Okay, all the internal arteries and the veins that are available, you are seeing here. This is your VR, virtual reality. At the end, I will show you some of the things that we have developed. Okay, again, there you will see augmented reality. See, there is a model. You just place any handheld device on the model. It will show you the different parts of it. It will show you the different right auricle, right ventricle, all those I believe you are able to see. This is your AR, that is augmented reality. See, if you hold a person there, where exactly the heart is situated, it pops up from there and shows. That was the first thing I had showed you the brain. Now I am showing you the heart, where exactly that heart is located, and that gets popped up. Okay. So can we just move back to the PPT? Sorry about this, that we have to shift. Okay, I will only move. So I had briefed you about all this. Moving forward, we saw the differences also. Okay, what is the technology that we are using here? So in order to create your AR or VR, what is the technology that we are going to use? So there are many things that can be used. Basically, we use Unity, which is a tool, which is an open source tool, which is freely available, and almost 91% of them use Unity. And Euphoria. Euphoria is basically used for all your augmented reality applications that you are going to do. So both of these are open source tools which is freely available, which can be downloaded, and initially you can start using it. So we are using the same thing for all our developments. There are many devices. When I showed you the demo, you saw different devices, handheld devices. We will see which are the devices that you can use for AR. There are basically, I will be showing you 4 different types of devices. The first one is heads-up device. So it is nothing but all of us are very much used to Google. Today morning when I wanted to come to this college also, I had used the Google. So it will tell me the map and other things. But what happens then, even then I get confused. If it tells take a opposite road, I start thinking whether it is diagonally opposite or what type of opposite. So in order to come out of all such confusions, you can use a heads-up device which will help you in navigating through the different sections. Okay, so we'll move on to the second device, which is known as the holographic display. See, in this holographic displays, if you can see, they are using a goggle type of this, which is known as holographic display, using which you will be including many of the things into your real world, wherein you can have a good demo of whatever value that you wanted to see. So then again, you also have the third type of device, which is known as smart glasses. If this type of device is already there in one of the shops in Koramangala, I have already checked it. So what happens there is, if you are purchasing any dress or something, you can, instead of trying it across, you can wear the goggle, you can have a look, just keep the dress in front of it. So it will make you can have a look as to how it will look when you wear it. So that is the type of display you can get using the smart glasses. So I just request you to play the demo 2, which will help us to analyze and understand better as to how this holographic glasses can be used. Demo 2. Demo 2.
So the common expression when people first put HoloLens on is usually, wow, I can't believe this.
Oh my God.
So this is the holographic lens which they are
In terms
wearing.
of surgery and medical education, I think being able to visualize things in 3D is just so much more than any textbook can offer.
You put it on, you don't want to take it off, and you can see right away all the different opportunities.
Virtual reality is when you put on a set of goggles. You can be placed on something like Planet Mars. HoloLens is an augmented reality system. You can actually see through the goggles, but then what it has is another set of lenses that project another image, which is the hologram.
Right now, we use these loops, and all they are magnifying glasses, really to augment our reality by magnifying it. With the HoloLens, it does the same thing, but to the next degree.
So let's say that we have a patient on the table and we want to do some type of intervention. Using augmented reality, we can superimpose data onto that patient, say their CAT scan or MRI.
And putting them all together and integrating them to really come up with this virtual three-dimensional see-through model.
The technology itself can be pretty game-changing. There are a tremendous number of ways that you can actually use augmented reality to help patients.
What we're developing in the lab is microwave ablation of cancerous tumors in the lungs using HoloLens. So it's a way of guiding the surgeon to the target without using radiation.
If you're able to sync what you're looking at with what's going on in real time, you're able to treat different kinds of tumors, larger tumors in more challenging places. You're really able to change the cancer care continuum.
The technology in our lab is at the point of, by the end of this year, we'll be able to use it in an operating setting to actually help them in treatment.
Pre-op, post-op.
I have no doubt that this technology will be utilized. It's just a matter of in how many different ways and who's going to be utilizing it.
Some people like football, some people like golf. I like the sport of bringing innovation together with the engineers and the clinicians thinking beyond what is here now. That's the exciting and I think the magic of the clinic.
Can you go back to the presentation? You can directly go to slide number 13. Can you go to slide number 13? Sorry about this because since I was thinking that there may be network issues, I had sent, so you have to shift between the presentation and your downloads. So we were seeing the different types of devices that can be used in augmented reality. We saw the HoloLens. Similarly, you will also see the glasses, HoloLenses. Then we will see these handheld devices. Handheld devices are easily available, that is your mobile. So using your mobile itself, that is your smartphone, many of the augmented reality applications can be managed. So you have any of the model. I've just taken an example from the biology. So you have a model, you handheld, you keep your mobile in front of it. You have to develop an application using augmented reality. You just hold that handheld device in front of the model. It will show you all the different parts of the skeleton that was available there. Okay? So handheld device is the fourth type of device that can be used in. See, whenever you are doing any of the virtual world reality or with the augmented reality applications, tracking becomes very, very important. What do you mean by tracking? See, when I am moving, it is not that only I am moving. Even the around, whatever the environment is there, even that should change. Or else, if I am in a real world, if I am moving along with me, the other person also will be moving. So, I have to have a sense of tracking. When I am moving, how is it going to affect my surrounding also? So, tracking becomes very, very important, and it is the same thing in augmented reality also. So, in augmented reality, there are different types of tracking, out of which these two are very, very important. Sensor-based tracking and vision-based tracking. Let me just put just an introduction for sensor-based tracking. See, nowadays all of you are doing so many experiments using sensors, that is using IoT. How to connect that to the visual aid, that is to your virtual or your augmented reality is the next question. So you have all the different sensors which are connected to the database, which can be again connected to the augmented reality, wherein you will be having an effective visualization. Not only you will come to know through the mobile, you can also visualize as to how it is working. So there are different types of tracking in sensor-based, that is optical tracking. You have magnetic tracking, you have acoustic tracking, as well as inertial tracking. These are the different types of tracking devices that are available in sensor-based tracking. When you move on to visual-based tracking, this is what is most important, and a lot of work is being done in this particular vision-based tracking. So here there are two types. One is marker-based tracking, the other one is markerless tracking. I will be showing you examples of both of this in the application. Okay, so basically all this marker-based or markerless application are used in the medical training nowadays. There is a lot of demand in the medical training, wherein you will be using the marker-based training. There is a lot of use in the retail sector, wherein you can easily show what are the different retail or this one that is available, how actually that can suit it. Then when it comes to design and model, this is actually nowadays you can even see in the advertisements, wherein they are using augmented reality and they are showing you the construction of a house or a building, how actually it can emerge. if you are constructing something, how actually the colors, whatever you want to choose, you can choose and do the difference. That also can be done here. Again, it is used in the tourism industry, wherein lot of applications can be done using augmented reality. See, these are all the different things that has been done previously, but along with this, I would like to, since there are many students from school here, I would like to highlight more on your 11th standard biology textbook. So, we have an app. If you just scan the 11th standard biology textbook, it will show you all the internal parts of the brain along with the explanation. Can you please go to the demo? I will tell you which one to play. This was an application developed by our students.
Application. It is made using Unity and Vuforia. So first, when I click on information button, it tells me how the application works. So here basically I have to scan the image, and this image is taken from 11th standard biology NCERT book. So as soon as I scan this image, the skull gets augmented and I can learn and play. So first let me click on select the marker button. So here as you can see, as soon as the image was detected, the skull is augmented. And now I can scale, rotate and translate the skull. And now if I click on expand button, the skull will slowly expand. And now if I click on any particular part of the skull, the part gets highlighted and that particular bone's name will be displayed in the top right corner. So now I'm going to click on right parietal bone. So as you can see, the part is highlighted and right parietal bone is displayed in the top right corner. And now I can join back the skull. So now I'm going to click on the learn button. When I click on the learn button, I'll get more details about the skull using audio and animations.
The skull is a skeletal structure that supports the structure of face and provides a protective cavity for the brain. The human skull consists of 24 bones, which are mostly connected together by ossified joints. It is composed of two sets of bones, cranial and facial bone. Cranial bones. Cranial bones are 8 in number. They form a hard and protective covering for the brain. Facial bones. Facial bones are made out of 14 skeletal elements and they form the front part of the skull.
See, the earlier one which we played was using augmented reality for biology. This, you have a look at it. This is the demo for which we have done for the mechanical department. See, earlier you were using how to have multidisciplinary work, multidisciplinary action. So, for computer science with biology, we have done one multidisciplinary. Along with computer science and the mechanical, we are doing one. This is known as IC engine. We were also talking in the initial stage about virtual lab. So cost of each of this IC engine is about 35 lakhs. So we cannot invest 35 lakhs in each and every department to show how the IC engine works. IC engine is basically used for all your transport, maybe a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, ship, aircraft, everywhere. So you will have this IC engine. How does this IC engine works? Or what are the internal parts of the IC engine? You will never come to know. You will see the entire engine. If I see this remote, I will just see the entire remote. I can't see the internal parts of the remote. Whereas using AR, we have developed in such a way that all the systems in the IC engine can be detected and it can be shown. Can you please play?
Which uses heat energy released by the combustion of air and fuel mixed together to produce mechanical work. IC engines are used in vehicles such as two-wheelers, four-wheelers, trains, ships, and even in generators to produce electricity.
Now you can see part by part. Each part will be explained in detail.
Crankshaft. The crankshaft of an internal combustion engine receives the efforts or thrust supplied by piston to the connecting rod and converts the reciprocating motion of piston into rotary motion of the crankshaft. It is usually made by forging steel, but some makers use special types of cast iron such as spheroidal graphite or nickel alloy castings, which are cheaper to produce and have good service life. Crankshafts are made by casting or forging as per requirement.
This is a part of the virtual lab that we have for the mechanical department, which is showing each and everything.
Connecting rod connects a piston to the crankshaft and transmits the motion and the thrust of the piston to the crankshaft. It converts the reciprocating motion of the piston into rotary motion of the crankshaft. There are two ends of connecting rod. One is known as the big end and the other as the small end. The big end is connected to the crankshaft and the small end is connected to the piston by the use of a piston pin. The connecting rods are made up of nickel, chrome, and chrome vanadium steel by the process of forging. For small engines, it may be made up of aluminium. It also contains connecting rod cover, bearing brushes with nuts and bolts to tighten them up. Connecting rod cover. It is used to cover the connecting rod and it is made up of aluminium. Bearing brushes. Bearings are used to support the moving parts. The connecting rod big end is attached to the crank pin on the crank of the crankshaft by a bearing. The main function of bearings is to reduce friction between these moving parts. In an IC engine, sliding and rolling types of bearings are used. The sliding type bearing, which are sometimes called bush bearings, is used to attach the connecting rod to the piston and the crankshaft. They are split in order to permit the assembly into the engine. The typical
So
bearing
the
half is made
entire
of steel
explanation
or
of the
bronze
IC engine
and
is
used
also given. Each part by part is explained and then finally the entire system will be arranged. You can just close it because you open the next this one. That is So when I was seeing a book that has been published, I was seeing more about the present coronavirus. So using augmented reality, we have done that project also. It is there in YouTube, you can even watch it. We have defined how the coronavirus looks, where exactly the ligand, the main branch of coronavirus is, how actually it affects. It's the entire series that has been done. I have just shown you a part of it. It is there in the YouTube link. You can just have a look at it.
New initiative from biotechnology side to all the common people to know more about the coronavirus. It's always a sort of people thinking that what is being very curious about when the corona comes, what is the research. So I, along with Dr. Ashwini, taken a lead and make this information much more reachable to the public by putting that into this type of new video. Now, this is a protein structure. You all know that coronavirus is.
See, this is an excellent explanation about coronavirus, which is there in YouTube. You can watch it. So it tells about the entire virus, how it is. I think you can go to the end part of it, which will be showing more about the ligand. just before, just slightly, yes, yes. So you can actually, this was augmented in the real world, in the classroom, this was augmented in front of us, wherein everyone can have a look about the entire virus. You can feel the entire thing. How, see, if we see in the book, it is just 2-dimensional. So here you are having a 3-dimensional view, and whatever the virus, where exactly it affects, everything can be shown.
And the blood is something which is a small molecule or the drug which is having an impact on the coronavirus, not to attack the human host. The glycoproteins of the corona will not come and bind to this particular point of contact in the protein. If you can see, those point of contact will be avoided, and it will help us now the attack against the coronavirus. So this is what we are we have attempted to make it clear for the public how this drug molecule, how it goes and binds to the protein to prevent these type of attack from the virus.
You can just try it, okay? So that's it. Okay, so this is an innovative way of doing things, wherein we are trying to, it's not just computer science, we are trying to combine with all the different streams of science. Not only science, we extend it to arts and other things. You would have also seen now, according to the new scheme that has come, Gujarat Tourism has come up with an AR application for all its monuments. That is, it is very widely known if you have gone through the Google and all. So if you just go in front of a monument, you will not be knowing anything about it. So you use your handheld mobile device, click on it, it will show you all the information of all the monuments. And if you can see right now, AICTE has come up with a new innovation and with the National Education Policy, telling all the important monuments in India have to be augmented. So looking at this, the way it is moving forward, it is just a very small baby that has been come up. There is a long way to go in augmented reality and virtual reality, which will be a wide, we will have a wide scope in the later on years. So with this I conclude. If there is any questions, I am ready to answer. Okay, any questions? Okay, I conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable insights on augmented reality and virtual reality. We are now at the end of our session. So to wrap up our session, I request Mr. Santosh, who is the alumni of our college. He is a 2017 batch. It's a proud moment to say that Santosh is an entrepreneur and he has his own, the segments related to the emerging technologies, film industries and entertainment sector. So I request Santosh, please do share your thoughts regarding the work that you have been doing. And from that, we are going to end our session. So Santosh, please take over.
Good speech from all of the resource people here. So few of you may know me and few of you not. So I'm very glad to be here, and I know it's an exhausting session from morning, and I'll not take this time here. So coming into the startups and entrepreneurial skills, I just have a few key points to tell for the students, which is a bit important because I've seen a lot of people coming into startups as soon as they graduate. That is quite good, and also it is turning also bad. Okay, so I prefer before coming and making startups, we should be quite ready for the industry. Okay, so before coming into the industry, we have to work on few concepts to make clear we have good time and we survive good in the industry. Okay, so first we need to work on the ideas, which everyone will have the ideas, and ideas originate with problems. Okay, being a startup man or an entrepreneur is like first you need to learn problem solving techniques. Okay, every day we see a lot of problems, and there is a need to solve the problem. So the entrepreneur is a guy who solves the problems. So first find a problem, then find a way to solve the problem, and then pitch the ideas. I know a lot of investment is also needed in order to make a startup. So we need to pitch the ideas to the investors or whoever it concerns, and then even Government of India is also very much enthusiastic about upcoming entrepreneurs. So they also have a lot of schemes under Startup India, Startup Karnataka also. So make utilize of that, and there is a lot of scope for startups. Startups are future. So I think I'll wind up the session. Thank you.